Tonight on Life on the Rock, our guest is Nick Brown. I'll give a reflection on reasons to believe and much more. Welcome to Life on the Rock. Tonight, our guest is Nick Brown. I interviewed him at a Focus conference in Indianapolis some time back, and at the time, he was a Focus missionary at UC Berkeley. You know, we think of that place as kind of a hotbed of liberalism, and he's going to talk about some of the challenges at a place like that. And we have to remember, I think, that certainly in the early church, they were evangelizing cultures that were pagan, very hostile to the faith. Sometimes we think if it's different, we could have some success. It wasn't true for the early church.
Right. And I think, too, with college, you know, a lot of these missionaries, they go to these campuses, and they're really out there to help build up the faith in young people. Because that's kind of a time of, it can be either a time of spiritual collapse or a time of great spiritual growth. So we're now going to reflection on reasons to believe.
We're here at Facebook headquarters in Menlo Park, California. You know, Facebook has 2.38 billion users. And it's one of the most powerful social media outreach there is. And people share photos, stories, news articles they like, and it can unite people, it can unite families that are separated in some sense, and it can unite humanity to some degree, you know, in shared human values, human experiences, sharing with one another. You know, one of the most common, I think the most common shared human experience is a belief in God. Most of mankind in this history and present day, most of humanity believes in some sort of higher power, spiritual being, some transcendent being that we call God, and that's more powerful than us.
Religion, throughout history has always been universal, and there's always been a sense that there is a creator and that this creator is to be worshipped. There's a belief in a life to come. Many of them have a belief very similar to just a heaven and hell. After life, you're judged, and that's where you're going to be spending all eternity. And then there's also the sense of right and wrong. And all of these have, throughout history, been bound to religion. And so the question we can ask is, if everybody believes that God is real, how can we be wrong? Right. And kind of an analogy is, well, if you have all these doctors saying, you know, X is bad for you, and then maybe a few that say, no, maybe not. Well, there's kind of a majority vote there.
We're going to go with the majority.
Vote, yeah. But, you know, even prayer, something as simple as prayer, has been common just throughout just the nature of humanity. And there is that recognition of something higher, of something divine.
Yeah, so oftentimes, you know, the rock star atheists out there want to portray believers as being backward, or somehow they need to get with it. Well, actually, the opposite is true. You know, the backward, the contrary, is to not believe in something greater than yourself. It's our common experience. Reason tells us that God exists. You know, faith can take us farther to know God, to experience Him in some way, you know, to accept divine revelation in Jesus Christ. So,
I think it was G.K. Chesterton that said, you know, religion, it's like the democracy of the dead. You know, throughout history, there's been brilliant minds from Isaac Newton to John Henry Newman and all these men. And that believe, you know, and a lot of them came to belief at a later age, having a life experience that may have been distant, like St. Augustine, away from God maybe in their youth, but they found God in a very strong capacity.
I think the other argument for a natural belief in God is just with children. Children so easily believe in God, you know, somehow that gets beaten out of us with this culture we live in. So it's something we need to be careful of. We hear a lot of messages that are against the faith, but don't listen to that. Don't pay attention to that. It's reasonable. Jesus Christ has come, revealed Himself to us, and it's the best for human flourishing and peace. May God give you His peace. Welcome, Nick Brown, to Life on the Rock.
Thank you, Father.
You're 3 years a missionary, and you're serving now at University of California, Berkeley.
Yes, that's right.
Now, We always view that as a bastion of liberalism, not much of a place of faith. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but it's a really cool opportunity as a missionary because those students that are faithful, because of the hecticness and the busyness and, as you said, the radicalism of Berkeley, really bonds together the students that are faithful. So the relationships amongst the students and grad students, those that work in the area, and the missionaries is so strong because you've got to rely on Jesus and those around you. And since there aren't that many, those bonds are so strong. So
roughly, what's the enrollment out there?
So it's about 36,000.
Wow, I didn't know it was that big. Okay, so and some of the activities you would be involved in as a missionary would be Bible studies?
So I lead a grad student Bible study, but then also a Bible study for some fraternity guys there at Berkley. I've been helping out at Seek, and organizing that. I'll actually be going on a mission trip to Peru during our spring break with a few students. So it's been kind of a hodgepodge of things there, along with a lot of the Newman Center activities that are already planned to kind of get our students, be a part of that community, even deeper. Some of the things that they already do. So.
And you have there's an active Newman Center there. It's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's been really cool to see the students, take ownership in the Newman Center and both its activities and both kind of the social aspect, service, and prayer. And they kind of taken leadership and ownership of that. And so we just try to, be missionaries and go out and meet students out on campus and try to invite them into what some of these, faithful students are already planning and organizing and leading. So.
And is it most common that you would draw in maybe students that came in vibrant, wanting faith, or maybe have grown lukewarm, you bring them back, or just no faith and bring them in? What is it a mixture of all that? Or?
It's definitely a mixture. I think, particularly at Berkeley, the majority of our students have come in fairly faithful and know that Berkeley's a tough environment. And so they want to, they know going into it that, from day one, they've got to, come to the Newman Center and befriend, other faithful people, knowing that's where they're going to get their strength. But it's been cool that not just with them, but to have guys in their, a couple years into the fraternity life and realize the emptiness there with those brothers, and so to find new brothers elsewhere. There are a few students that have come to Berkeley that haven't been raised in any faith, that their parents never took them to church, but through just the joy of meeting other students, that they want to seek that out and just kind of get just drawn into the joy that Christ offers through them. So.
Is that a big draw, like the fellowship, the joy that they see, in people coming together at the Newman Center or whatever activities?
Absolutely. It was interesting moving out there from Indiana, actually, here in the Midwest, that moving out there, as soon as I would step onto campus, I as kind of a bystander would almost just feel instantly alone walking onto campus. It was weird.
36,000 people.
36,000, because everyone's got their headphones in, everyone's got a book out, everyone's got their head down, just storm into the library or to back home or to class, and never looking up, never talking to anyone. For 36,000, it is eerily quiet. And so I think for them to see students that actually laugh on campus, or they actually have people to hang out with, and our team's gone out and just pass the volleyball around on campus, and we get random students to just come talk to us and hey, what are you doing? I want to have fun for 20 minutes in between class. I really do think, particularly in a place like Berkeley that is so academically rigorous, that their brains, their mind is so challenged, and they're trying to focus so much on that their heart is always left empty. And that joy that they see other people have, they want their heart to be full.
And I see it at these conferences. I mean, I'll see maybe some missionaries here with his students, his group, and you can just see the friendship, the camaraderie they have, that it is so beautiful. It's it's just such a basic human need, to belong, to have friends. And certainly the faith fosters that.
I think that's been the cool thing is walking with these students, and they've never had friends like this before. They might have had good friends in high school. They might have had, they might meet some students that they, buddies that they spend time with on campus and party with, but when they've met someone from Newman Center or even a missionary,
Yeah.
that they find someone that actually cares about who they are,
Yeah.
not what they can do for them and what
Yeah.
fun that they can have with them. It's it's about their being rather than what they can do for them.
Yeah. I know a Franciscan that he joined the Franciscan order like in the early 70s or something. And for him, I asked him, how did you possibly, in that very countercultural time period, the 60s, 70s, how did you make it to like, tradition and Catholicism? And he said for him, it was kind of like this ultimate countercultural.
Yeah.
If you want to be really countercultural, become Catholic, believe in the 10 Commandments and have faith. And is that, I would feel like that would be such a challenge, is that you're talking to a group of people so imbibed with the culture that it's just it's a very different worldview, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the hard things about Berkeley is, I want to encounter those people and first and foremost understand where are they coming from.
Yeah.
I want them to know that I love them. I want to understand where they're coming from, and then speak that truth into them. And where is Jesus in the things that that they believe or that they know or they think that they know. And to be able to do that. And so that's a hard thing about Berkeley is not everyone wants to be understood. They just want to be heard. They just want to scream and shout and then move on.
Yeah,
So when you ask them a question that might challenge why they think a certain way,
right.
It's not always met with, I guess reciprocal charity that they want to just scream at you because you've challenged them.
Right.
And move on. I would love for someone to challenge me on why I'm Catholic, why I'm a missionary.
Yeah.
But it's not always seen that way when it's from the other side. And that's one of the hard things about Berkeley too, is that everyone wants to be understood.
And so you've been a missionary there 3 years, right?
1 year.
Oh, 1 year there.
Yeah.
And where were you before?
So I was at St. John's University in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Okay.
St. John.
So the 1 year you've been at Berkeley, have you had many discussions along those lines? Like, hey, why do you Catholics teach what you teach about, or believe what you believe about homosexuality, or gay marriage, or abortion? Do the tough moral issues come up?
I think it's interesting because that's, as a Midwesterner moving out there, that was my impression was I'm just going to get bombarded with those questions. I'm going to get, maybe ridiculed for the answers I give. But actually, I don't get it very often. When I've brought up that I'm a Catholic, and I always try to say I'm a Catholic missionary, or hey, I'm going to Bible study. Try to say something that would kind of shock someone that someone in Berkeley is doing these things.
Yeah.
A lot of times, just know, oh, okay, and then they don't want to ask anymore. And so I think it's really interesting out there that that not the faith doesn't even doesn't make the front page. It might not even make the last page out there. It's just kind of an ancient thing that some people, I guess, do. It's not something that they are terribly curious about, and a lot of it is very self-centered. That I'm not going to change my mind about my beliefs. I'm not going to adopt yours. I don't want to know about yours because what's that going to do for me? And it's a very self-centered culture out there.
Has most of the work been done on the basis of attraction then? Drawing people to the joy of friendship, fellowship. That's been the most effective.
Absolutely. To meet them where they are, to go play basketball with some of these guys, to take them to go get food. I have a guy in my fraternity Bible study. He plays on the volleyball team, so to go to his volleyball match and sit there for 3 hours. And I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2 volleyball matches in my life, but to sit there for a whole tournament and just because I know this guy's playing and I know that's what he cares about. And I think that's what draws him in. I think Berkeley is a super academically rigorous campus. And those guys are way smarter than me. So in terms of being able to reason with them and to, they've got their reasons, they've got their, but to hit them something that is unexplainable, like joy, where some things just give you joy and you don't know why. I think that's where you can really, just strike at their core, all right, and really, question themselves.
And I think too, just strength. I mean, I think especially for men, you want to have strength of character and things like that. And if they can see that in Catholics, and that drew me. When I was in college, I met a guy, who's a very devout man, and I knew there was a strength about him that I want that.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen that at
Yeah,
all?
yeah. I think a big thing in college, Berkeley, you know, and when I was at St. John's, in my own college experience, that it's hard to be stable. I think the consistency. I think that's what students really see with the joy of missionaries, of those that are centered on Christ, that foundation that is unshakable. They don't have that. When their grades suffer, when a friend stabs them behind the back, when girlfriend breaks up with them, whatever it might be, they don't have something solid. And therefore, when that falls apart, that what their life was centered on, then they don't have anything. And so I think like that's when it's I think like any of us, like that's when we've met Christ is kind of in the tomb. That's where we've met him, is when our foundation is shaken.
Now you've been laboring in the vineyard 3 years. What kind of feeds you? I know there's times of maybe loneliness or disappointment, questioning maybe. What feeds you? What sustains you?
Yeah, I think the classic answer would definitely be prayer, but I think even more so this semester. I've just come to even more of that deeper and deeper realization that my relationship with Christ needs to go deeper and deeper. And like I said, like that being the unshakable foundation. I think kind of the next step up from that foundation would definitely be my team. That my other male counterpart and my three female teammates. I mean, it's so great to be able to turn to them and living in a way that's so countercultural. And living in such a way that's so radical as a full-time missionary. There aren't that many people in the world, let alone Berkeley, that know what it's like to be a missionary. And so to be able to rely on those four, and also friends from around the country that I call, and whether they've been from my time in college, whether they've been other missionaries. It's those relationships that I call and remind myself that I'm not alone in this fight. That that Jesus is still Lord, even if things are hard. So I think it's the relationship with the Lord, and the relationship, namely with my team, but also other faithful people, has been really what continues to give me life in the midst of those hardships. So
now you were in college seminary for a while. You discerned out of that program. What is something you learned about that discernment process that was helpful for you? Maybe somebody watching, it would benefit them.
I think as I look back on my time, which were an amazing 3 years in college seminary, when I look back, I do see how what I thought I was, I know that the priesthood is such a good, and so many of my friends are still in seminary or now young priests here in Indiana. But I think with that, there's a lot of me trying to convince myself, and to almost overthink it. Where I think very short and simply that it's the Lord wants us to be at peace, with Him and where we are, where He's called us to be. And so when I finally for me to kind of let go of that priestly dream of being a priest in Central Indiana for the rest of my life, to kind of let go of that and really just love those around me, kind of forget about myself for a little bit. Then when I came back to, where am I at? It was like, maybe the Lord isn't calling me to that. There is peace in discerning marriage, and
and I think I heard a Dominican sister say one time. Someone asked her about the question, "How did you know?" And she said, "I think you just know." There's something like deep down that this fits, or that I know God's calling me to this. And then we follow that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your faith with us and talking to us. I really enjoyed our conversation with Nick Brown. We kind of have an image of Berkeley, like from the 60s, maybe a place of radicalism and protest, and I'm sure all that stuff still goes on, but it's also 36,000 people. It's a high-end academic institution. There's a lot of pressure to succeed. You got to be smart and accomplished to get into the school. And I was struck by the things that he said would draw students to him. What were some of those things?
I think one of them is a lot of the students, they're not looking for an argument. but what they're seeing is a great joy in a lot of these missionaries that are, they're assigned at Berkeley. And I think that's a very powerful testimony when you see that, because one of the aspects of faith is that it is supposed to bring up happiness and joy, because this life is not about just this life, but there's another life to come. In God's grace, He's going to restore us. We do live in a broken world, and there's a lot of questions, especially if we have prayers and they don't come answered or anything like that, a loved one dies. There are so many ways that we just kind of fall into a lot of despair. And when we don't have God, that's something that a lot of people fall into, is a lot of despair.
Yeah, he said the students were drawn to the stability they saw in the missionaries. About, they're having the bumps of life, breakups with girls, academic struggles or difficulties, and they were drawn to the stability that the faith gave, the fellowship, the joy, and the peace. Yeah, and they weren't looking for an argument. Sometimes we think, well, I got to go into this kind of very atheistic culture and have these great arguments. Yeah. And he found you go there and you provide some community, some very human interactions, authentically human actions that would draw people.
I think too, with college students, a lot of them are hungry. A lot of people at that time in their life are searching for a lot of, they're asking questions on marriage, on careers, what does the future, lie in store for me? And there is a lot of kind of things up in the air that they don't know. And faith, a lot of times college students do come to faith just because, maybe they didn't take it seriously as a kid, but they want to know more as they grow up as an adult. So.
Right. So our challenge this week for you is to plant the seeds of faith. And these might be kind of pre-evangelization seeds, just to be a good friend, that someone else can maybe see your joy, peace, the stability of your life. And as we have a culture that becomes more secularized, these things are more attractive to people, so don't discount them. Plant the seeds of faith wherever you're at, and be open to any kind of authentic, real human encounter that people, what they're hungry for, what they're desiring in their hearts. So we'll send you into that vineyard with a blessing. May our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week on Life on the Rock.
There is a harbor for those in need of safety. A place where we can rest. There is a Father who left His throne above to find this wayward soul. I'm drawing closer into the heart of mercy that bore my shame and broke my chains at Calvary. Thy love poured out and saved by grace, you lead me home into the heart of God, into the heart of mercy.
I run to you, your arms are open wide, forgiven and set free. I'll follow you, for you have made a way to mend this broken heart.
I'm falling deeper into the heart of mercy that bore my shame and broke my chains at Calvary. Thy love poured out and saved by grace, you lead me home into the heart of God, into the heart of mercy, into the heart of mercy. Blood and water pouring from your side, it floods my